You've been sold a lie. That whole 24/7 rise and grind, no sleep lifestyle, that is not the blueprint for a successful business. That is actually the blueprint for a complete breakdown. Today, we're talking about why the entrepreneurs you admire most, they're not actually outworking you, they're outthinking you. So for years, we've been fed this toxic idea that being exhausted, that's what equals effort. And burnout, that's just some kind of badge of honor that we pin on ourselves. Well, that's actually a really dangerous myth that has wormed its way into every corner of entrepreneurship. It promises glory, but it ends up just delivering ruin. We're told to build that business, to build the empire that we really desire. That's going to require us sacrificing our sleep, our health, and our relationships on the altar of the hustle. But here's the cold hard truth that I've learned, and more data is actually coming out that proves this. Hustle culture doesn't build empires, it digs graves. It's a false economy where you pay for that short-term buzz of frantic activity with the long-term destruction of your most valuable asset, you. Stick with me because I'm going to pull apart this lie, and then I'm going to give you a real playbook for building a business that thrives in a life you actually want to live. So how did we even get here? How did we end up in a world where working yourself into the ground is considered a virtue? Well, it all started with this huge misunderstanding of what productivity actually is. Hustle culture thinks that productivity means being busy. You may view this as a calendar packed with back-to-back meetings, an inbox that never sleeps, staying up late just for the sake of it. It's the glorification of being on 24/7. But let's be honest with ourselves. Just because you're moving doesn't mean you're moving forward. Busyness is not impact. Hours logged doesn't necessarily mean you're creating results. This whole mindset is actually a trap. Experts call it toxic productivity, and it's a modern epidemic, especially for entrepreneurs who feel like they're carrying the weight of the world on their shoulders. We fall for this idea that if we work just a little bit harder, a little bit longer, we're finally going to get that breakthrough that we so desire. But for most of us, it's the exact opposite that happens. The more we grind, the less effective we actually get. Think of it this way. Would you want a surgeon operating on you after being awake for 48 hours? Of course not. Would you trust a pilot to fly your plane on only 2 hours of sleep? Probably not. We get that in these high-stake fields of work. That rest and clarity, that's non-negotiable. So why do we as entrepreneurs, the architects of our own companies, think that we are the exception to this rule? Why do we think that we can make these sharp, innovative, multi-million-dollar decisions when our brains are running on fumes? This lie is tempting because it feels like such a simple formula. More work equals more success. But that equation is deeply flawed. It completely ignores the law of diminishing returns. Building a small business obviously requires a huge amount of effort and often means doing things that the majority of other people aren't willing to do. However, there's a well-documented point where more stress and longer hours leads to a steep drop-off in your performance. Your creativity tanks, your decision-making gets a little fuzzy, your ability to lead your team just evaporates. You become the bottleneck in your own business while thinking you're the most valuable player. Now, this isn't just some philosophical debate. This stuff has real, measurable, and devastating consequences. The stats are pretty sobering. Recent surveys show that up to 72% of entrepreneurs report struggling with burnout, which is way higher than the general workforce. More than half of small business owners felt burnout just last year alone. Now, we're seeing these epidemic levels of anxiety, depression, and chronic stress tied directly to this way of working. So let's be clear about what burnout actually is, because it's not just feeling tired. It's this deep state of emotional, physical, and mental exhaustion from being stressed for too long. It's that constant feeling of being overwhelmed and emotionally drained. It's that cynicism that starts to creep in, making you detached from the business that you once loved. It's that conversation with your family where you snap at the dumbest little things. It's that nagging feeling of being ineffective, and like nothing you do matters anymore. The chronic stress from constant hustle literally rewires your brain. It damages your memory and your ability to focus. The very skills you need to be an effective leader, you don't have those anymore. Your physical health will take a hit too. We're talking about sleep problems, which 40 to 45% of entrepreneurs report. We're talking a higher risk of heart problems, a weaker immune system, and all kinds of other health issues. I've seen this in my peers. I've experienced it myself. And the founders who land themselves in the hospitals with heart palpitations, the business owners who are stressed to the point where they can't even eat solid food anymore, the entrepreneur who completely loses their passion and constantly thinks about walking away. In fact, over a third of entrepreneurs have thought about quitting their business specifically because of burnout. And for what? A hollow victory? You can win in small business and still lose everything that actually matters: your health, your relationships, and your peace of mind. That hustle culture that promises the world but forgets to mention it, it's going to cost you your soul. Before we move on, I want you to be real with me for a second. Drop a comment down below and tell me, what's one hustle habit you're ready to ditch today? Is it checking your emails at midnight? Is it skipping lunch just to answer one more message? Feeling guilty for taking a Saturday off? Let's call it out and start building a community that says no to this way of working. So if the 24/7 grind is the road to ruin, what's actually the path to success? It's a simple but profound shift in your mindset. We have to stop glorifying how hard we work and start focusing on how intentional we work. The most successful, innovative, and resilient founders out there aren't running on stress, they're running on clarity. They don't outwork you, they outthink you and out-systematize you. Success is not a marathon running at a sprinter's pace. It's about strategic action, consistent rest, and building a business that serves your life, not the other way around. This isn't about being lazy or giving up on hard work. Hard work is always going to be part of the deal, but it's about applying that work with purpose, not just throwing it at every problem like a blunt instrument. It's the difference between wildly swinging an axe in the forest versus using a sharpened saw to cut down one specific tree. One is chaotic and exhausting, the other is focused and effective. The foundation of working more intentionally is this: reclaiming your control. And the most powerful way you can do that is by setting and enforcing clear, non-negotiable boundaries. Now, boundaries, it's not a sign of weakness. They're actually the guardrails that are going to protect your energy, your focus, and your sanity so you can show up as your best when it truly matters. All right, enough talk. Here's the blueprint for dismantling the hustle mindset and building that business you have always dreamed of. First, you need to define your start and your finish. You need to set clear hours that you're going to work each day. Clock in and clock out, even if your office is your kitchen table. When your workday is done, it's done. This is going to create a mental container that lets your brain switch off. It's going to be able to recover and process what you did throughout your day. The leaders who model this, the ones who don't send emails at 10 p.m. on Saturday, they tend to scale their business in a much more healthy and a much more productive way. Second, you need to schedule rest like it's a critical meeting. Rest is not a reward for your hard work, it's a requirement for it. Top performers, they don't just rest when they're tired, they treat this as a very intentional strategy throughout their day. They schedule short breaks into each and every day. Take a real lunch break, they book their vacations, they actually unplug. So your energy, it's kind of like a phone battery. You can't just run it down to 1% every single day and expect it to charge right back up in a few minutes. Third, you need to become a master of just letting go. You are not becoming a hero if you're doing everything yourself. You're becoming the bottleneck. Early in my career, I thought that my business would never survive if I was not doing every single task. I always thought that I could do it better, and I was completely wrong. I was working in my business, not on it. Your job as a leader is to live in your zone of genius, that big picture that only you can do. So delegate, outsource, automate everything else. I know it's hard to let go, but the data shows that entrepreneurs who delegate regularly suffer from way less burnout. Fourth, you need to learn that two-letter word that will save you every time: no. Every time you say yes to a low-value request, you're saying no to a high-value priority. Being overcommitted is a fast track to burning out. You have to learn to ruthlessly protect your time and energy by saying no to meetings and projects and tasks that just don't line up with your most important goal this week. This isn't about being difficult, it's about being strategic. Your default answer should be no, then later on, justify why this is a yes. Fifth, focus on impact, not your to-do list. Stop measuring your day by how many boxes you checked off. I know this is a really hard habit to break. I, for one, love checking off those boxes, but it's time that you start measuring it by the results you created. At the start of each day, identify 1 to 3 most important things. What are those big ticket items? The ones that are really going to move the needle forward on your business. Do those first. This makes sure that even on those crazy days, you're making real progress, not just spinning your wheels on busy work. Let's be perfectly clear. Rejecting hustle culture is not about lowering your ambition. It's about fueling them the right way so that they can last. It's about finally admitting that you are the most important asset in your business, and running that asset into the ground is the single worst business decision you can make. The future of entrepreneurship is not about seeing who can grind the hardest. It's not about seeing who can go the farthest. It's about seeing who can lead the smartest. It's about building that business with intention. It's about clarity. It's about compassion for your team and for yourself. True success is not about measuring how much you can sacrifice. It's about measuring the quality of life you can build along the way. So I'm asking you to make a new choice. Ditch the martyr act. Stop wearing burnout like it's some badge of honor. Start building systems that work for you so you don't have to work yourself to death for your business. You've been told that you need to rise, you need to grind. I'm telling you to rise and think. This is how you're going to build that business of your dream, and it's how you're going to build the life that you actually enjoy along the way. So thanks for watching. If this hit home for you, hit that subscribe button. We're going to be talking a lot more about how to build a wildly successful business without losing yourself in the process. You've done enough grinding. Now let's put the strategy to work.